we're on.
Okay. Welcome everybody. I'm not sure if you can hear us. I'm assuming that you're all there. But we'll kick the process off. My name is Guy Iopolo, and I'm the Managing Director of Essatto and Managing Partner of Iopolo & Associates. And this is Richard Jardine, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Essatto Software. What we're going to do is today, I'll just share my screen. This one here.
Screen 3. No, it's 2.
2. Okay, so hopefully you can see our screen. Great. Okay, so we'll just get started. I'll just give you a little bit of an overview. So I've pretty much covered off who we are. Basically, today's agenda, what we're going to be covering off today is basically giving you a little bit of a solution overview of what the Essatto solution does. And then we'll follow that up with some case studies, some very specific case studies around the different types of use cases of where Essatto can be used. And then Richard is going to provide you with a product demonstration, and then we'll just summarize what the session was about. So I'll quickly launch into this. So basically, Essatto is all about analyzing the past and visualizing the future. That's its premise. And pretty much what it's all about is providing businesses with informed decisions about both their financial and operational aspects of their operation. It's a single, flexible, configurable platform. So it's all contained, and basically because it's all contained, it's in effect cost effective and reasonably quick to deploy. So in terms of an overview of what the functional aspects of Essatto provide, it basically combines and manages data from all sources. So basically it can pull in data from ERPs, from operational systems. It has a budgeting and forecasting component to the solution, which basically is both top down and bottom up. So you can start things at a high level and then drill down and then build up from the bottom as well. So it allows strategic sort of analysis of projected outcomes, as well as then getting into a very operational focused budget process. It has a consolidations module, which allows you to basically aggregate across multiple entities, and also for the accountants facilitates eliminations. And it has a multifaceted grouping capability through its custom hierarchy. So you can group, do subtotaling and drilling through different sort of structures that you can build within the system. And then overlaying the whole solution is a reporting and dashboard capability, which is pretty extensive, and we'll get into that during the session. Okay, so what differentiates us from other solutions in the marketplace? Well, the first thing is typically the functionality that Essatto provides is generally available in a disparate way in the marketplace. You typically need to buy the various components of what Essatto is providing and then bring them together through typically a system integrator. So therefore you got additional software costs because you're having to buy the various software components, and then you have to get an SI typically to basically make all the components talk to each other to produce the outcomes that Essatto delivers. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see the various sort of, I suppose, competing components of an Essatto solution. So, you know, there's a number of different budgeting and forecasting applications out there. Everyone knows about Power BI and has heard of MicroStrategy and Tableau. They're your dashboarding layer, your BI layer, and then of course you've got your data stores. So Essatto is basically bringing all of that together, and it's basically integrated. You do not have to do any of the integration work within the application. and basically it's giving you all of those combined outcomes. In terms of the specific components that exist within the solution, obviously I've mentioned the actual data, the data store aspects previously. So you basically can pull data in from any structured source, and you'll see in the architectural slide that's coming how Essatto does that. The reporting I've mentioned, it has got an extensive reporting and dashboarding capability, and it also has the ability to attach third-party BI tools to it as well. The custom hierarchies I've mentioned, where you're able to group, summarize and drill data across different dimensions, whether you have a customer focus or a product focus, or you have a financial accounting versus a management accounting view, where responsibility reporting might span across multiple entities. You can basically achieve that in Essatto through the custom hierarchies functionality. The fast budgets is a very quick and powerful function within the solution that allows you to basically produce a multi-scenario outcome of multi-scenario projected outcomes, basically, and basically it's doing it at a very granular level. Unlike in an Excel spreadsheet where you cannot generally get into any depth of detail, the Essatto solution can do it right down to a specific stock keeping unit level across multiple entities, multiple products, multiple customers, and so on. There's a very powerful Excel add-in feature in the solution, which basically allows you to both write data back to the application, as well as leverage all the powerful pivot table features that Excel provides. The big difference, of course, with using Excel in the context of Essatto is that the data is in a stored, centralized, secure, structured environment. You're not storing data in your disparate spreadsheets, but you're just leveraging the end user interface, which is well known to most users as part of the Essatto solution. And the other thing that Essatto provides is security. It has very strong security features where you can lock down the intersection of any particular data point where you know, product, customer, account intersects, for example. In terms of the architecture, so this slide basically gives you a good idea of what's sitting under the covers of Essatto. So you can see here that the Hitachi Pentahost solution figures prominently. So embedded in the Essatto solution is the Pentaho data integrator, and we leverage that extensively to pull data in from whatever source we need to get the data in from. We have a data store embedded, and then we're also leveraging the Hitachi Pentaho BI server as part of our solution. On the analytics side, we're basically leveraging the Pentaho business analytics component, and you can see basically the other components of the solution that sit there. We can bolt in, we basically have complete integration with Excel, and then you can plug in third-party BI solutions like Power BI into the system if that's what you require. Okay, technical features. So Essatto has a number of different installation modes. We can basically implement it as a hosted private cloud. We can set it up as a public cloud, which we have in place, or for some clients who prefer to install on-prem, that is also an option. So that's one of the, I suppose, one of the advantages of our solution. You're not constrained in terms of how you want to, the install config that you require. I mean, the public cloud scenario, so basically there are your three different install options. We have also the ability to do a single tenant and a multi-tenant type configuration. Most single clients or individual clients only require a single tenant. However, in some circumstances where you might be a centralized, have a decentralized business, and you need each business running autonomously, so therefore each business or each branch needs to run in their own tenant, we can also set it up that way. There's the ability to centrally manage and govern user access, which I've mentioned previously. This is an important one. The physical to logical maintenance is automated. So if you make a change, if you input data in Excel, that data immediately is visible in the BI layer. So that whole data source, data store, data presentation layer, the three are completely integrated. So there's no work to be done in terms of binding those various areas together. And basically, there's a whole lot of pre-built features in the system that basically means that you can rapidly deploy, which is another big issue when you go and buy a lot of the software off the shelf and integrate it. It takes time and it takes consulting dollars. A lot of that cost is taken out of it for you because we've basically pre-built the application and all that integration for you. Okay, so I'm now going to cover off a few case studies of client examples. Each of these serves the purpose of just giving you a different perspective on how Essatto can be used. So we'll start with the first one. So the first one is an Australian-based, a very large Australian-based seafood company that employs over 500 employees. It's a very old and established company. And basically their requirement was basically their whole reporting was really, how should I put this? Well, it was cumbersome and limited in functionality, as I've written up there. They were struggling. Everything was largely spreadsheet based. Data was sitting in all these disparate sources, and it was your classic opportunity, I suppose, for a solution like Essatto. They found it very difficult to pull reports together. It was extremely time consuming, and also they weren't really able to effectively focus on customers and products in the context of, who should they be spending more time and devoting more resources to in terms of customers and products. So basically what we did was we implemented Essatto to solve those problems. We removed a lot of the key man risk that evolved around the whole spreadsheet empire that they had going there. We gave them the ability to very quickly iterate through budgets and rolling forecasts, and we gave them the multi-scenario features. We also did quite a lot in their demand and supply planning area, where they were able to actually start planning what they needed to import from offshore by being able to update what their expected sales were at a very detailed stock keeping unit level. We also facilitated self-service reporting. We delivered customer and product profitability, and we also implemented quite a comprehensive customer and supplier rebate management system as part of the Essatto solution. So that was that example. The next one was also in the food services area, except this one was much larger. It had 11,000 staff, and its focus was more in providing services in the areas of catering and cleaning to remote locations such as mining camps. It also had provided these services into hospitals, universities, and those types of organisations. And their key focus was to consolidate the vast quantities of financial and operational data that they had sitting in disparate systems. and also to provide a reasonably comprehensive layer of predictive modelling. Being such a large customer-focused, employee-focused organisation, there was a lot of focus on staff costs. So there was extensive analytics that we provided them in that area, but we also gave them pretty detailed analysis of both historical and forecast on each of their clients and contracts, their specific sites, and basically also a pretty detailed analysis on revenue and what was impacting their revenues based on new business coming on, customers rolling off, and just a like-for-like type of analysis as well. Similar sort of outcomes as well here. Key man risk is a common one. The budgets and the rolling forecasts, and then self-service reporting was also a key feature of that particular use case. Okay, the next one was in financial services. This was a consumer finance business, and we were running Essatto across 11 countries. This again was very large. They had 2,500 entities, 12,000 plus centres, 1,100 plus products, 900 plus customers, and there was also disparate charts of accounts and also quite a need to do currency translation here. Again, their main focus was customer, well, it was mainly product profitability, and there was an extensive cost allocation engine that we built into it that ran across actuals, budgets, and forecasts to deliver the profitability outcomes that they were chasing. Similarly, budgets and forecasts was a big aspect of the requirement for them, key man risk and the self-service reporting. Okay, my final use case before I hand across to Richard, who's going to provide you a product demonstration, was one of the big Australian banks who was running an operation in the Pacific area, Pacific Islands area. We're running across 8 countries. Each country had its own chart of accounts, its own currency, of course. And they had a need to report daily back into head office. So we basically set Essatto up to basically update the head office system from each of these on-island operational systems. It did the currency translation, it did the chart of accounts translation and basically gave the organisation the ability to report both from a head office perspective and a head office view, as well as each country having the ability to basically do all their management reporting out of the same system. So it was extensive. And then overlaid in that solution was also a whole bunch of key metrics and calculations that were required at the time, risk-adjusted assets, capital benefit, capital charge, and all the IFRS type reporting requirements. Again, you can see on this slide, similar, the other outcomes were common. So basically that brings me to introducing you to Richard now, who's going to basically run a demonstration of Essatto that highlights the key features. So I'll hand across to Richard. Thanks.
Thanks, Guy. Morning, guys. Thanks for joining us for our presentation. I'm going to show you how Essatto produces reports via the web, Excel, or third-party tools like Power BI, the ability to create fast budgets, which Guy talked about earlier on. I'm going to create a sales forecast for the purposes of today's demo, where we've got 8 months of actuals and 4 months of forecasts. I'll show you the write-back capability of Essatto, where we've got a demo sales rep who's going to revise their forecast. And I'll also take you through some of the key aspects around updating a hierarchy. The example we're going to cover today, just so you've got a bit of background, it's based on like a supermarket type business. There's 2 companies in the example, and the data is getting refreshed on a schedule. Okay, so I'm going to cover off web reporting, web dashboards, reporting out of Excel, and also Power BI. At this point, I'll toggle across to the Essatto web interface. So I'm just in Google Chrome, and at the moment you're looking at part of the Pentaho business analytics stack, which is embedded into Essatto. We're looking at a dashboard that contains data from multiple sources, and you can see here we've got stuff from Essatto's Excel add-in, from the general ledger system, Google Analytics, etc. So we basically use PDI to bring all of this information into the warehouse, and we're using a dashboard to provide a one-page summary for our executive in this example. Essatto also has the ability, actually before I go there, I might quickly show you how to create a report. Some of you are probably already familiar with this because it is the Pentaho Business Analytics stack, but I'll just very quickly go through an example for those who haven't done this sort of thing. So I'm going to pick my sales subject area and my sales cube in terms of the data that I want to report. Okay, so the screen's laid out so that you've got a canvas on the right-hand side where I'm going to just create my pivot table or my charts, and I just drag and drop content from the left onto the canvas, basically. So I'm just going to take sales dollars in this example in terms of the data that I want to report. I can then start filtering that information. So I've got products here, and I'm just adding the levels in from my products hierarchy. So you can see that I've got total products breaking into some product categories here, beverages, food, etc. I can do things like filter this by time. So I'm going to bring my months maybe on the columns here. Maybe I want to look at a specific month, so I'll just keep August, for example. And there's all sorts of filter type options available in the interface. And then maybe I want to break this out by customer, but you can see I've got company here, there's salesperson further down, etc. So I'll just grab this level from my customer hierarchy. Okay, so now I've got a view of my sales by product, by customer over time. You can turn that into a chart if you need. So it's pretty easy to do. And there's various chart types that are included as part of the stack. So I can make that a stack column, for example. That's basically the web reporting side that comes with Essatto. I'm just going to go now across to Excel. Okay, so same data that I was looking at before in the web, except now I'm accessing that information via a Microsoft Excel pivot table. And you can see I've got my same categories, beverages, food, etc. I'm looking at actuals versus budgets across those categories. And you've got all of your Excel capability in terms of a pivot table to drill into the information and perhaps do things like make this a salesperson-based analysis. If I just expand all salespeople, I'm now looking at my sales for actuals and budgets by sales rep across the categories that they're selling. Okay, the last example that I've got here to show you quickly is Power BI. So if you're not happy with the out-of-the-box BI capability that Essatto gives you, you can use a third-party tool. So accessing the same data again, except this time I've got a sales analysis that's been created in Power BI. It's all completely interactive, so I can do things like click on June, for example, and the charts will update to reflect that selection. Okay, so that's a very quick run through of the reporting capabilities of Essatto. Next, I'm going to take you through fast budgets. So we're going to create a sales forecast, and then we're going to have a look at how, as we apply our various what ifs, the numbers are changing in the dashboard layer of Essatto. So I'll go back to the web interface, and just to set the scene a little bit, we've got in the system currently actuals, which is shown in blue. You can see there's 8 months worth of actuals there, and we've got a budget that we set last year for this year. And you can see that for the last 4 months, we obviously don't have any actuals. So given that we've had 8 months of actuals occur, we don't have a good bead on what's going to happen year to date at the end of the year. So I'm going to create a forecast so that we can get a view as to where we might end up, given we've got these results that have come through. All of this information I'm showing you is based on sales dollars in this example, and we're looking at it at a high level. But behind the scenes, I'm just going to turn this into a table. This budget and those actuals actually go all the way down to the lowest level of detail. So I can drill all the way down to an individual stock keeping unit if I want to. And you're going to see how that process was put together in the terms of the forecast I'm about to build. So I'll go across to fast budgets. And I've got a lot of what ifs here or a lot of sensitivities that I've run previously in my data. So, you know, what if this happened? What if that happened? I'm going to focus just on these forecast ones that I've created. So I'm going to start by populating my actuals months. So there's 8 months of actuals that I'm going to bring into my forecast. And the data that I'm bringing across isn't just the dollars. It's actually all the quantities, all the prices, all the unit costs, so that we can build up a good picture of gross margin, but then also have the drivers that support that margin outcome, so that when history comes in, we've got the ability to do variance analysis against the quantities that we wanted to sell versus the quantities that we actually sold. Likewise for the prices, any discounting that we might have factored in, all those sorts of things. So it's allowing you to quickly create a budget or a forecast, but with all the detail that you need to properly do your variance analysis later on. And that's typically very difficult to do if you are running lots and lots of products and customers. It's hard to do that manually. So it's typically done at a high level. I'm going to now bring in my remaining budget. So that's 4 months of that budget scenario that I've just copied in. I'll go back to my reports, and I've created, for the purposes of today's demo, a forecast versus budget report. This is showing all my budget numbers at the moment. I'm just going to refresh. And we should see our forecast wash through. And we've now got the forecast in green reflecting the actuals for the first 8 months. So you can see they differ from the budgets. And at the moment, the last 4 months are exactly in line with the budgets. So actually, before I jump into fast budgets again, I want to also jump into our year-to-date view, because I want to see how we're going to finish up at the end of the year. So I'll do the same thing. I'll just refresh my report. Okay, so budgets are still in blue, forecast is in green, but we can see our budget was 8.8 mil for the end of the year in terms of sales. Given those 8 months of actuals that occurred now, we can see that we're more around the 9.2 million mark. But we don't want to stop there for this example. We're going to run one more sensitivity, or one more what if, and we're going to increase the quantities for a specific range of products, in this case tea products, by 400% for a particular type of customer. And in this case, these customers run organic stores. So I'll apply that. Okay, so I've just done a global adjustment across the business for a specific criteria. If I refresh now, okay, we can now see the year-end impact. So it's gone from 9.2 to 9.4, so there's about 200,000 extra in sales there. You might have noticed that my adjustment related to increasing quantities, not the actual dollars. And the system has automatically recalculated out what the dollars are. And if I wanted to, I could bring in margin as well and see what the impacts were there. So that's in a nutshell the top-down budgeting capabilities that you've got at your disposal there. I'm going to show you how you can also have your operational managers or your line managers or your cost center managers or your sales reps contribute to the budget. So we've in effect set what our initial target or our first cut of the forecast is. I'm going to jump back into Excel. I'm going to go to my sales forecast, and I'm looking at a Excel template or two Excel templates that I've set here for my salespeople to write back information in terms of the forecast. So You can see I've got an Essatto ribbon here, and my reps have got the ability to refresh data back from Essatto, and we're going to refresh back that first cut of the forecast that we set up, and also the ability to submit the data back or write that data back directly to the warehouse. So none of this is copying and pasting of numbers in between systems. It's a direct connection straight back into Essatto, but we're using Excel because it's often the easiest way to get buy-in from the business and from users that aren't necessarily too tech savvy. Excel is a common tool that's used out there as part of their existing process, so the transition is normally quite seamless. If you have a look at the template, we've got products running down, and this area is all completely Essatto aware. So when we've defined this, the spreadsheet basically knows that this is an Essatto section, and anything that goes on here is directly interacting with the warehouse. So we've got products, we've got time periods. You can see that it's not just two-dimensional. It's also by salesperson, by company, so multiple companies. It's by customer, and it's importantly by the salesperson here, Bruce. So and by scenario. So we've got a forecast here as well. So you could have forecast 1, 2, 3, 4, best case, worst case, whatever you need. I'm going to do a refresh to bring down that first cut of the forecast that we set up with fast budgets. Okay, and this is quite an important step because what it's done for Bruce is it's brought in his actuals. You can see in this white section here, the green section is where you can do your inputs, but he can get a view of what his quantities were earlier in the year to use to help him work out what his remaining forecast might be. We've also created a chart, neat little chart here for Bruce, where he's got his budget quantity or his original budget and his new forecast, so he can see the variations there. And in this example, we're inputting quantities. We could change prices as well, or you could simplify this more if you wanted to, and you could just be inputting dollars. And there are other examples in here that I won't go through today, but I've also got an example here of just a profit and loss based budget where the user is inputting operating expenses, general and administrative, motor vehicles, advertising, promotions, etc. Okay, so I'm going to adjust my number for April, which is 3,000 at the moment, to 25,000 so that we can actually see something occur in the charts. You might have noticed that the chart in Excel is just updated, so Bruce can see what those differences are going to do to his numbers. And then when he's ready, he clicks on the submit button, and this will write his changes back to the warehouse, where anyone who has access to that data can view those changes. So I'm going to jump back into my web report, and I think we were about 9.4 mil before. Yep, going to refresh. Okay, so now we're at 9.7 for the end of the year, based on Bruce's changes. There's no batch processes that need to be run after hours to consolidate all the information. It's all seamless and interactive in effect. So I'll just go back to my slide deck. Okay, so we've covered those. We've also covered Excel add-ins. So we've adjusted the sales forecast. We reviewed those changes. I'm going to show you a little bit about hierarchies now. So I'll go into the maintenance section of Essatto and give you a couple of examples. So hierarchies are basically used to group and consolidate your information. I'll start with product because products are easy to understand. So the hierarchy that I've been using for the demo has got these groupings: beverages, food, etc. And the data is basically consolidated up from the lowest levels to these summary levels. And the important thing to note with hierarchies is in Essatto they're centralized, which means any data that relates to these hierarchies, be it actuals or forecasts or budgets, etc., as you change the groupings of these structures, all of your data is reconsolidated in line with those changes. So it manages change or handles change really well. You don't need to relink spreadsheets, etc., across all your different data points. you simply update your hierarchy, and that basically brings back into line all of your numbers against how your business needs to recategorize or report its information. I'm going to very quickly create a new hierarchy, and I'll rebuild a couple of these categories just so you've got an idea on how easy this is to do. So it doesn't require any programming, it's end user centric. It's typically something that your Essatto administrator end user would do. So I might call this RJ2, for example. Okay. So the system's going away and creating that hierarchy for me. I'll just toggle across to it. Okay, so it's blank at the moment. I could have also used another hierarchy as the basis and then changed it as needed to meet that differing reporting requirement, which also leads me to highlight that Essatto is multiple hierarchies. So you can have, against the same dimension or the same filter, product in this example, multiple ways to group and consolidate that data. Back to the demo. So I'm going to start with a top level similar to the one that's there. So all products I'm going to put at the top of my hierarchy tree. And then I'm going to add bakery as the next level. And snack foods as another grouping at the same level as bakery. And then I can start adding some SKUs. Maybe I want to add pies. And some snacks. Okay, and that's all about there is to it. So the next time I push out a maintenance process that goes through and updates basically the logical reporting structures in Essatto, my end users will be able to look at my RJ2 hierarchy for my product categories, bakery and snack foods, and see what those numbers are across their history and across their budgets and forecasts. Another thing you can do with Essatto, which Guy alluded to in some of his early discussion, was the ability to do multi-company consolidations. So I'll just go to the company dimension. So we've got a simple example here with just 2 companies, but you can see that if I drill into this, I've got company 1 and 2. When they consolidate up, they give a total, which is companies before eliminations. You can also set up an eliminations entity within Essatto or an eliminations company, put all your eliminations entries as needed in against the companies and the eliminations company to give you a total company view after eliminations. So that's a simple example there. But you would have seen in the slides as well that one of the implementations had 2,500 entities, so you can get as complex as you like with this stuff. Just going to move across to account. So the other thing that Guy mentioned was the ability to combine multiple charts. So if you're running multiple ledgers, or if you're transitioning from an old ERP system to a new ERP system, you can use this sort of approach in Essatto so that you've got reports across those disparate multiple charts, or so that you can still do your management reporting through that transition period between old and new chart. So I'm just drilling into a profit and loss structure. Okay, so I've gotten down to income, which is part of net sales, which is part of gross margin, etc. And under there, we can see that we've got some sales accounts, 4 series sales accounts that relate to one of the companies in this business. I'm just going to bring in some other sales accounts that are from a different general ledger system. So you can see this is a 5 series based account. This was only a 4 series, or 4, it's got 4 characters only. It's a different chart value. I'm just going to bring those in under income as well. And by using this process, you can basically map all of your income items to a common income group, so that across your companies, whether the charts are different or not, you can get an income total. and ultimately a company-wide profit total across all those entities, regardless of how their charts are structured, the underlying chart structure works. Okay, so back to the slide deck. Okay, so just to summarize, fast budget, so quick creation of a detailed forecast or budget. You can run what ifs using it to apply global adjustments, and you've obviously got the ability to do really good variance analysis of that information depending on the level of detail you choose. Excel add-in, so intuitive to end users. You don't have much training, if any, there. Makes it very easy to complete their budgets and forecasts. It's Excel, except it's writing back to the warehouse. And again, you've got your variance analysis happening there too. Hierarchies, so grouping and consolidating your data, combining multiple charts, multi-co, and variance analysis, or what we covered in the demo. And at this stage, I'll just hand back off to Guy to wrap things up.
Okay, thanks, Richard. So we've only got a few minutes left, so I'll quickly run through this. So just to summarise, Essatto is an all-in-one, pre-built, rapid deployment application that provides physical data store, a logical BI layer where calculations and hierarchies and metrics can be defined. It has its own dashboarding, web and Excel-based reporting. It has Excel and web-based write-back, and it has the ability to also integrate third-party BI tools. In terms of business benefits, well, obviously there's a time-saving element to this in terms of the amount of time it would take someone to actually pull together actual numbers to deliver outcomes for their management or for themselves. There's reduced implementation resource and effort required here, as was discussed earlier. One application as opposed to multiple software components, less integration, so on. And then basically the bottom line is it gives you greater insights, which provides opportunities for increasing revenue and reducing costs. And so the key outcome is there's cost savings, there's increased revenue opportunities, and hopefully that leads to increased profitability. And that's basically really what the value prop of Essatto was all about. In terms of going forward, I'm not sure we're going to get to any questions because we're running out of time, but you have my contact details there. By all means, pop any questions you have in an email and send them through to me, and I'll be more than happy to respond to those questions. There's also the opportunity to book a one-on-one meeting, and I have a whole series of those set up in the system, but also we can separately arrange those meetings should you require just by dropping me a line. And one of the other big call outs today is I'm sure there are quite a number of Hitachi integrators out there listening today. I hope there are, and I'd be very keen to chat to anyone who might be interested in potentially looking at partnership opportunities with us. There's obviously revenue opportunities for adding to your revenue streams by coming on board with us. Yeah, we look forward to perhaps hearing from you. Final note is thanks for listening, obviously, and being patient through the whole process. And just a reminder that there's this Amazon gift card promotion going on as part of this conference, and to take note. And that's basically it. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll hear from some of you soon. Thanks.